time since then, pretty substantial inclusion for an additional military leave recently. Leave can be taken in one chunk or intermittently, and we'll talk a little bit more about intermittent leave. But when it's medically necessary, sometimes you can take FMLA in chunks over a period of time. So if you do go for periodic treatments, like for cancer or some sort of therapy, and leave might be more appropriate to stay single time. Employees make any effort to schedule those in a way that's not going to create any kind of disruption in the workplace. You must use any existing paid leave concurrently with FMLA leave. FMLA is non-paid, so we do require all employees to use their paid leave. But if you run out of paid leave, you still are entitled to your FMLA leave. When an individual is on leave, college has to maintain health coverage at the same level as though they would really be still working. So you're not going to lose your medical coverage while you're out. And upon return from leave, most employees are going to be restored to the original or equivalent positions. Now, we say most there because there is always the possibility that if somebody is out for a very extended period of time, we may have to hire someone to replace them. For instance, if somebody in a very critical position is out on leave for 6 months, we'll say, which would be beyond the normal range of FMLA, but just for the sake of this exercise, we may have to bring somebody to put them in that position. However, when the individual returns from FMLA, they would be eligible to be put into a position that would be similar. So it would be same level of responsibility, same level of pay. We wouldn't take an instructor and when they return from FMLA, give them a part-time position in the library. That's not something that can happen with FMLA. It's one of the protections. So eligible employees, you must work for a covered employee, and Central Carolina is a covered employee or we wouldn't be having this discussion. You have to have worked for us for at least 12 months, and within those 12 months, you have to have worked at least 1,250 hours. And you have to work at a location where the college has at least 50 employees within a 75-mile radius, and that's the entire college. None of us are further than 75 miles away from each other. But there would be some companies where they might have very remote locations, and that might come into play for them, but that doesn't apply to us. Just to really bottom line it, we're all eligible for FMLA. So basic leave entitlement, you may take up to 12 work weeks of leave, which is 480 hours, in a 12-month period for one or more of these following reasons. So the birth of a child and the care for that newborn within 1 year of its birth, the adoption of a child or the care of that child for within the first 12 months of the adoption. You can take leave to care for a spouse, child, or a parent who has a serious medical condition, or for your own serious medical condition. And this is really the most common reason we're going to see, or you may need FMLA. If you have a condition that's going to keep you out of work for an extended period of time, FMLA would be something that we would want to talk about. And any qualifying exigency arising out of a spouse, child, or parent who is a military member on covered active duty or called to covered active duty status. This essentially means you can take FMLA if you are the parent, spouse, or you have a child who is on active duty or called to active duty, and you need time to help them get their affairs in order before they deploy, or they need some assistance over the period of time while they're preparing for deployment. This is just a way to provide some support for our troops through the FMLA process. Since it's family and medical leave, there are, this falls into that family portion of it. Now, because of the increase in military activity and the increased need for care for some of our returning service members, FMLA did add a military leave entitlement a few years ago. And this portion of the program provides an additional, or a total of 26 weeks of leave during that 12-month period. And this is for a covered service member with a serious injury or illness. So if someone comes back from deployment and they have suffered an injury, you can take up to 26 weeks to help them with their care when they return back to the States. Again, this must be, the employee must be a spouse, child, parent, or next of kin of the service member. And it's important to note that the single 12-month period that we use to measure these is the same used for the 12 weeks that we just talked about. So what that means is if you have, you've used your 12 weeks of FMLA leave for an illness that you have, you don't get an additional 26 weeks through the military leave entitlement, you just get 14 weeks of the military leave entitlement. If you take all 26 weeks of the military leave entitlement to help your child or your spouse, you don't get any more for that year. You've used all of your leave for that 12-month period. Does that make sense? Okay. So this is where FMLA gets a little bit confusing, in case it wasn't yet. There are 3 different ways to calculate how you use up leave through the 12-month period. What we do, so you can take up to 26 weeks. You're entitled to a new 12-week FMLA leave every 12 months. You can't carry anything over, so you get a fresh 12 weeks every 12 months. And if you use intermittent, it's recorded in 1-hour increments, at least 1-hour increments. So since you get this new 12-week allotment every 12 months, we have to be really careful about tracking the use through the previous 12 months. And the way that we calculate at Central Carolina, one of the 3 approved ways, is a rear-facing calculation method. So, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, I'm sorry. So to determine the amount of time worked toward calculating this 1,250 hours, we look at all normal days of work, any days of leave that are taken, sick and vacation leave, and then also any paid holidays. And you should always contact Terry to verify your hours and make sure that you're completely up to date with your leave and everything when you're trying to figure out what your leave calculation is. So, the rolling 12-month year method. What we do is we add up all the FMLA time that an employee has used in the previous 12 months. And then we subtract that total from the 12-week allotment. And then the remaining available balance is 12 weeks minus whatever number of days used during the preceding year on that day. So I have an example here. So on February 1st, 2014, June 1st and December 1st, this particular employee used 4 weeks of FMLA leave on each of those dates. So for 3 months, this individual used all of her FMLA leave. So this person would not be entitled to any additional leave until February 1st, 2015, because the first date of FMLA used in 2014 was February 1st. So she has to reach February 1st of the following year to start her allotment over again. So on that day, on that anniversary day of the first date that the FMLA leave is used, this person will get back 1 day. So in a situation like this, we are going to need to recalculate FMLA leave every time an individual requests it. And this person may actually fall in and out of FMLA eligibility depending on how frequently they would need the leave. What this process does is prevent individuals from using all of their FMLA leave the last 3 months of the year, if we would just use a regular calendar method, and then January 1st, when their 12th month starts over again, taking another 3 months of FMLA and being out for that half a year. It's just a way to make sure that we're managing the use of FMLA a little bit more precisely. Any questions about this particular piece? This is the most confusing part of FMLA. Okay. So very basic steps of the process here at the college. When you know that you're going to be out for a period of time, or you know that you have an individual that you need to care for one reason or other, or if you're planning to adopt, or you're going to be having a baby soon, any of those reasons, notify your supervisor of the issue, whatever the condition is. And then also I just ask that you let HR know too, just so we have some redundancy there and we can make sure that everybody who needs to know is on board. Make sure that you let us, let us all know in a timely manner so we can get the paperwork processed and do everything that we need to do for you in advance of your leave, when possible. We will have some forms for you that you'll need to commit or to submit. We ask that you do that in a timely manner so we can, again, get them processed accurately. And then we ask that you contact payroll to discuss your benefits, your pay. There are a lot of things that could possibly come up during FMLA. If you go into unpaid status and you're there for 30 days or more, that could potentially affect your eligibility for, or that's going to affect how your benefits will be paid for. So there are things that you need to talk to Terry Harrington about to make sure that you're kept up to date and you're not running into any trouble while you're out on leave. And also we ask that while you're out, you stay in contact with your supervisor and letting HR know, number one, that you intend to return after your leave, but also that you're still on track for your return date. You don't have to do this all the time, but we just ask, about every 2 weeks or so, just checking in briefly with an email or a call, just to let everyone know that you're still on track to come back. Not a matter of sharing any medical information or anything like that, just a check-in to let everyone know that you're on track. So as far as the documentation that you're going to run into when you're going through FMLA, the first thing that you'll need to do is fill out this FMLA FMLA application. And this is just our internal form that you can see we need a sign off from you, your vice president, and then Dr. Marchand. So this is just letting us know that you are going to need some leave, what that leave is going to be, and then we can get that approved and let you know whether we can give you that leave or not. This is our indication that it's time for us to check to make sure that you've worked with us for 12 months and you've put in those 1,250 hours in those previous 12 months. The next thing that we'll give you is this form. There are a series of forms, and each one is specific to the type of FMLA leave that you would take. This one, I believe, is specifically for the employee's serious health condition, but there's one for the condition of a spouse or a significant other, spouse, child, or parent. And there's other ones for adoption and birth of a child. But what this is just a medical authorization form that you can take this to your healthcare provider and they'll verify that, in fact, the condition that you have told us you need FMLA for is, in fact, the condition that you have, and that they'll verify the window that you'll need to be out and give us a rough estimate of how long it'll take for you to get back to work. And this is the document that we use to help coordinate the length and the terms of your FMLA. You'll also receive a notice of eligibility and rights and responsibilities. And this is a form that just gives you some basic information about what your rights are while you're out on FMLA. It gives you some information on whether or not you're eligible, how many hours you can use, things like that. And you'll get this whether or not you were approved or declined for leave. And then this is the designation notice, and this would be the final form that you would get, and this is the official notification that you have been approved for FMLA, what number of hours you're going to use, if you know that, if it's not intermittent. And this is just your official documentation that in fact you have been approved. These are all documents that we can walk through at the time of FMLA if you need some guidance through them. Most of them are pretty straightforward, but as with any of this, if you have any questions throughout the process, please feel free to come over and sit down with us, and we'll be more than happy to walk you through the process and the documents. So there is a specific call-in procedure that you have to make sure that you're using when you're using intermittent FMLA leave. And this is to make sure that we're getting the information that we need, because just because you have been approved for FMLA leave, if you are calling in an intermittent situation, we need some information to verify that the leave is FMLA related. So we ask that you call within 1 hour of your normal start time. We ask that the employee would call in. In certain cases, if the employee would be unable to call, then we would accept a call from someone else, but our preference would be that the employee call in at this time. And you need to provide enough information to determine if the absence qualifies for FMLA leave. So as I said, just because you call in doesn't mean that the absence is FMLA. So if you have intermittent leave in order to undergo some sort of recurring therapy, but you call in because you have a cold, that's not going to be applied to your FMLA leave. So you need to let us know that, well, I have an unscheduled therapy this morning that came up, I need to call in, versus I have a cold, I can't make it to work. That way we can properly credit your FMLA, and we're not taking time away from your balance that shouldn't be taken off. So that's a really important step of this call-in procedure. And we just need to make sure that this procedure would be applied consistently between FMLA and non-FMLA absences. So if an individual gives that 1 hour notice for a non-FMLA absence, we're going to need to hold them to the same thing if it's FMLA related. So communication through this whole process is really important because number one, we need to make sure that we're on top of what we need to do to make sure that your leave is approved and taken care of. And we need information from you to make sure that we're giving you the support that you need and doing everything we can to make sure that the leave is applied accurately. So while out on FMLA, employees must inform their manager if the need for the leave changes. So if you expect to be out for 4 weeks and after the 3rd week your doctor says that you're cleared to go back to work, everything is, you're recovering faster than expected, we need to hear from you and know that, and we can make adjustments to your leave balance and get you approved to come back on time. As I said earlier, we do need periodic updates from you as far as whether or not you are still coming back and that your return date is still when we originally thought it would be. And has to be at least every 2 weeks. It doesn't need to be any more frequent than that. Once we get the approval for you, we try to notify you within 5 days. We are supposed to do that. Of course, there are sometimes going to be situations where we might struggle to do that, but we do need to let you know within that 5 days. If you're ineligible for leave, we do have to give you at least one reason. You can't just be denied because. There's a list of reasons on the designation sheet that we have to give you one of those explanations. And as I said earlier, whether you are approved or declined, you will receive a copy of the employee's rights and responsibilities that I showed you earlier. Once the college has the information necessary to determine if the leave is FMLA protected, we do need to notify you and communicate to you how much leave is going to be deducted. So if you've been approved for 2 weeks of leave, we need to let you know that 80 hours is going to be deducted from your total, unless you've been approved for a period of time for intermittent leave, and then we just may not be able to know in advance how much you're going to need. It's really going to depend on the course of the condition that you're out for. And then also, supervisor, and we ask the employee too, just to let us know, has to notify us that the return to work is still what it was originally agreed to, or if any changes are being made to that. And all of this is really just to make sure that your leave balance is being accurately credited and that you're not losing any more leave than you actually need for the condition while you're out. So for the supervisor, we ask that you designate any absence that meets the requirements as FMLA leave. And this requires you to be familiar with what it is that is an FMLA. Let me start over. This requires you to be familiar enough with what FMLA covers to make this determination or to give HR a call. Pretty much any condition that prevents an individual from doing the primary responsibilities of their job or some basic life activities is going to be covered by FMLA. And an individual, when they first request FMLA leave, they don't explicitly have to tell you that they want to take FMLA. So you may have to make that determination or call HR to help you with that determination. That's where we get back to needing just enough info to make that determination. So if someone says, oh, I need to be out for a little while and I just need to take 2 weeks of sick leave, you need to get a little bit more information from them. Because we do need to know if the reason for that sick leave is FMLA related. As I said before, if the absence qualifies for FMLA, you need to notify the employee immediately and let them know this is an FMLA thing, get the paperwork to them, and get them into the process. Communicating with them and using the FMLA call-in procedure regularly and consistently is very important, as I said before, just to make sure that all the absences are being treated the same. And as I mentioned earlier, there are a list of reasons why FMLA could be declined, and they're right here. So if you have a scheduled procedure and you don't provide enough advance notice, we can potentially decline FMLA for that reason. If you've not submitted required and sufficient medical certification, we can decline FMLA for that. If the employee fails to provide a return to work certification, if required, if the employee just says while they're out, I'm not going to come back to work, I'm just going to stay out from now on, the FMLA can lapse at that point. So also if individual fraudulently requests FMLA or they get FMLA under false pretenses, we can cancel at that point and deny. And if the employee is out on FMLA and they're working somewhere else, we can retroactively deny FMLA and take it away at that point. So, but if for any reason the leave is denied for those, we will communicate that to the employee. We also ask the supervisor, ask appropriate questions about the reasons for time off. As I mentioned, the first time, you don't necessarily have to be told that the employee wants to take FMLA leave, but if they take further leave in conjunction with that originally approved condition, then they will need to explicitly tell you. So, for instance, if somebody is taking 2 weeks of FMLA leave because of say a surgery, and then they come back and 2 weeks later there is some sort of complication involved with that, and they're going to go back out again because of that same issue, they would need to tell you at that point that this is FMLA related. related to that previous condition, I'm going to take some more FMLA. They've been previously approved for that. Or in the case of somebody taking intermittent leave, they would need to tell you that it's FMLA related each time they would take it. Just make sure that you direct the employee to HR for all the appropriate FMLA forms. We'll make sure that they get the right form that they need, walk them through anything that they would need to do as far as getting the certification and reminding them to go to Terry. And every time that I say send them to HR and we, I mean me. I just want to make that clear that I'll be the FMLA contact for everybody. So we ask the supervisor to follow the procedures we talked about for handling absences as far as observing that call-in procedure, making sure that you recognize that the requested time off is FMLA, and I can't say it enough, keeping HR up to date on what the status of the leave is. Some things that you should not ever do as a supervisor: interfere with, restrain, or deny an employee who's trying to exercise FMLA rights. Discourage individuals from using their leave or manipulating circumstances related to eligibility. So that would be a situation where somebody says, oh, they have their 1,250 hours. Not that anybody would do this, but changing a timesheet to show that they don't have 1,250 hours, anything like that. Don't expect anybody to do that, but in no way interfere or change any circumstance that would deny someone use. Fire or discriminate anybody who's complains about an unlawful practice under FMLA or raises any concerns. That would be considered retaliation under our general policies and procedures, but it's also something that's explicitly not allowed under FMLA regulations. And you don't consider the use of FMLA as a negative factor in anything. So if someone uses FMLA, deciding not to hire them or disciplining them for using FMLA. And then finally, encouraging employees to waive their right to use FMLA. If someone comes to you and says they'd like to take leave and trying to talk them out of it, just don't engage in that conversation in any way. Just be supportive of the request to use FMLA, be proactive in recognizing when FMLA should or could be used, and let the process work as it will. For the employees, the responsibilities, we do need at least 30 days advance notice of anticipated FMLA leave. Now, obviously, there are going to be some things that you're not going to know about. If you're in an accident and you need some time off to recover from that, or emergency surgeries. But if it's a situation where you have a planned surgery or some sort of planned treatment coming up and you know about it in advance, if you have an adoption or you're having a baby, you're not going to be surprised by those things. You're going to have quite a bit of lead time if you're having a baby. So if the proper notice is not given, Deja knew about it for a while, and so did we.
I hope everyone knew that I was having a baby and not just putting on weight.
So if we don't get proper notice of a foreseeable condition, that may delay approval of FMLA up to 30 days. If the 30 days notice isn't practical, then you can notify us as soon as it's practical, typically within 24 hours. So if there's an accident and you're going to have to be out on FMLA for a while, letting us know as soon as you know after that, a day or two is what we ask. We do ask that all employees follow the procedures for requesting leave and calling in absences. So, letting us know that that you have a condition out for a while. As I said before, you don't need to specifically request FMLA. That's where the employer's responsibilities come back in. But at least letting us know that there's a reason you're going to be out so we can make that determination. And then providing the sufficient information to determine if your request qualifies. The issue with this is if you don't give us that information, or if you would just call in sick and start taking a lot of time off, we're not going to know that you have a qualified issue. And potentially it could become an attendance issue for you. If we know that you have FMLA, you have a qualified FMLA absence, that's going to protect your taking time off from becoming an attendance issue and us having red flags about you not being at work. So again, getting back to the protective nature of this, we need the employee's input to help make sure that we apply it accurately and effectively. And then we do ask, especially with intermittent, that you consult with your supervisor and make a reasonable effort to schedule your intermittent leave so that it's not disrupting operations of the college. So for instance, if you are an instructor and you know that you have classes on Tuesday and Thursday mornings, we're going to ask that you schedule treatments on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons maybe, or any time other than when your primary responsibilities at the college are scheduled. And then, I hinted at this earlier, but if you are going to be on unpaid leave for more than 30 days, 30 calendar days. So for instance, if you're out for your full 12 weeks of leave and you only have 8 weeks of leave available, you're going to be out for 30 calendar days without pay under FMLA. You need to contact HR and benefits, Terry Harrington, to make arrangements for the payment of your healthcare premiums and any other optional benefits. So if you're on the 80-20 plan, you have short-term disability, long-term disability, things that there's something coming out of your check to pay for as far as benefits, you need to make sure that arrangements are made for those premiums to be paid. If you're not getting a paycheck from the college, there's nothing for us to pull that money from to pay your premiums to keep them going. So we need to make alternative arrangements for you to keep that from lapsing. So it's really important for employees to talk through all of that with HR and with Terry to make sure that these possible situations are known and we can make arrangements for them in advance. As I mentioned earlier, if you are taking leave for a reason that you were previously provided FMLA for, you're taking kind of an additional period of time or more time in conjunction with an existing issue, you do need to be very explicit that that is why you're taking this additional leave. So we need to make sure that that's clear for us. That would be a time when you would have to be explicit as an employee. And we do ask that you cooperate throughout the FMLA process to avoid having approval delayed or leave denied, giving us the appropriate amount of notice of need for FMLA, completing the medical certification and paperwork that we need in a timely manner before you go out, responding to questions to determine if an absence qualifies. Again, I can't say that enough. If you don't give us enough information to know that the condition is FMLA qualified, we're not going to be able to make the determination that it does indeed apply and give you that protection. Following the call-in procedure, if you're on intermittent leave, making sure that we have your intent to return and, if necessary, providing any fitness for duty medical releases if that's required. In a situation where you are medically not allowed to work, we would require that we get some sort of certification that we can let you back to work and that you're not going to be a risk to yourself or others for further injury. And then being able to perform the essential duties of your job with or without a reasonable accommodation. We need to know that you're able to do that throughout the leave, and that's where the certifications and the medical paperwork comes in to help us make that determination. And then just, again, reiterating, setting up that appointment with payroll to make sure that you're discussing shared leave, benefits continuation, all of those issues. Staying in contact with your supervisor and HR during your absence to make sure that we all know where you're at with your recovery and that your return date is still on track, and then providing all that documentation we request in a timely manner. So really just a quick summary. This is a no-cost protection of your position with the college when you go out on medical leave or family leave or any of the qualified reasons. The process, as I said before, just make sure that you notify your supervisor of a condition, giving enough information to allow a determination that it is a qualified absence under FMLA, contacting HR in a timely manner and completing the forms that are necessary to approve your leave in a timely manner, contacting payroll to discuss benefits, pay, shared leave, those options, and then just staying in contact with all of us to make sure that you're planning on coming back and that you're coming back and the date of your return is, if not what we originally agreed on, letting us know what a new date would be. If you do have any desire to research more FMLA paperwork or the actual website, this is the Department of Labor's website, the official FMLA website for the government. A copy of the law is there, I believe, a lot of documentation and quick fact sheets if you have any questions. Come to me, obviously, with any questions you have, but this is just another resource for you. Are there any questions?
If you're out on short-term disability, can you still use it? I don't know how that works.
That is a good question. You need to make sure that you coordinate all of that with Terry.
So just to give you an example, I used short-term disability. I did. So when I went out on FMLA, I had a policy with Colonial. So I used my short-term disability for the first 6 weeks. That's what was covered. So yes, you can use your short-term disability for your FMLA.
I was just going to mention that you covered a lot of procedural things, but the important thing here is that before 1993, jobs were not protected, and particularly in the case of female and pregnancy. If you were to ask family members, I bet you they could share some stories about people who went out on pregnancy leave who lost their job. Okay? And if you have employers with less than 50 employees today, that can still happen. And there's some safeguards, but so a real reason for this law.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's so important that everybody really realize this isn't it's not an optional thing. If you're out for a condition that applies under FMLA, it applies to you. You don't have to pay for it. You don't have to do anything special except to fill out that application and let us know so we can process the appropriate paperwork. But this isn't anything that you're paying for or that you have to fight for. We're more than happy to work with you and make sure that we get you covered by it and make sure that you're not going to run into anything like the pre-93 issues that George is talking about. Becky?
Before you can use FMLA leave, you have to exhaust all other leave?
No, you use your other leave at the same time. And if you run out of your other leave, you can always apply for shared leave, so that's an option to extend your leave. But if you run out of all of your leave and you still have FMLA leave to take, you can just take unpaid leave for that period of time. Yeah, you don't need, if you don't have leave, you don't need to have leave to take FMLA. It covers you whether or not you have anything to pay.
If you know that you're going to have surgery or one of your employees are going to have surgery and they're going to be out for 3 weeks and they have 6 months leave of sick leave, are they still supposed to go through this process even though they have plenty of leave and they know they're going to come back after 3 weeks? We're still supposed to do this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Like this is more of a guarantee that you have your job, right?
It is.
Yeah, that's what
It is, yeah. It's not anything that, that's why I say, it applies to all of us. It's not anything that you have to pay for or you go after. It's really at a basic level, it's just the guarantee that if you take up to 12 weeks, you're going to come back and still have a job. It's like George said, there was a period of time that if you told your employer, look, I need surgery, I'm going to be out for 2 weeks, they're like, well, just don't bother coming back. Or I need to take maternity leave. Like, okay, well, we'll find someone to replace you who's not going to need maternity leave. So this is, it seems kind of stunning sometimes that we need something like this because we're so used to working in places where this isn't an issue, but it was started at a time when this really was an issue, so. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you all very much for showing up and tuning in. If you have any questions or curious about whether anything that you have planned or that your employees have planned might be FMLA, give me a call. I'm more than happy to walk you through it and we'll figure out what we need to do to make sure that everybody's covered and we're all being taken care of. So thank you again and have a great day.